So, welcome everyone to our Creative Commons session. This is a short one, so we'll get going. I don't know to what extent people here are those who already know about Creative Commons and are coming for an update, or have heard about it, don't know much, and it's sort of easier to come to a 30-minute session rather than click on the link, but anyway. So I'm going to hand over to Paula, who is far more expert than me. Paula is president of LIANZA, the New Zealand Aoteaoroa Library Association. I will learn more now. And she's also the knowledge curator at CoreEd. So welcome to the floor. Before I invite her, I'd also like to pass on thanks to Mood Latif, who is the coordinator of Creative Commons in Malaysia. Unfortunately, he's travelling at the moment, but has left us with some attractive merchandise, which you don't have to pay for because it's Creative Commons. Anyway, over to Paula.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks for making this happen. Stephen and I were at the Creative Commons Global Summit in Toronto in April early this year, and he heard us present about the certificate. And it was a sort of, do you think you could do this at IFLA? So it sort of come together through Stephen's motivation. Before I start, I'd like to recognise that it's my privilege to be able to give this presentation in my first language, which is English. And I recognise that for many of you in the room, that's not your experience. So I'll try my best to speak slowly and not use too many New Zealand colloquial terms. But if I'm speaking too fast, could you just raise your hand and I'll slow down and try and make it easier to understand. So I'm Paula Eskett, and in New Zealand we'd say kia ora koutou. So kia ora is our national greeting, so it'd be nice to start off with everybody getting in the mood of the New Zealand spirit. So kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Ka pai, well done, well done. So as Stephen said, I'm president of Te Rauhirangia o Aoteaoroa, which is the Library and Information Association, Aoteaoroa, New Zealand. So you will hear Aoteaoroa interchanged with New Zealand when anybody from New Zealand is speaking about the country we come from. And that means the land of the long white cloud. So I'm a knowledge curator for a not-for-profit education research company, and I'm also a mum of 3 delicious grown-up children. So we were being at lots of presentations that share some fun facts about the countries that we've all come from. So I thought it'd be nice just to set the scene with a little bit from New Zealand, with one of our flags here that look nothing like the Australian flag, but actually very similar. So New Zealand is a small island nation in the Pacific Ocean, and we're only 11 hours away from Kuala Lumpur, one direct flight. New Zealand is the first country in the world to see each new day, because the East Cape of our North Island sits just 500 kilometres under the international dateline, which means that we're always living in the future. So there are some stereotypical images of New Zealand, and they're on the screen here. So top left, we are pretty famous for Lord of the Rings, the movie, not the book. So we're pretty famous for throwing ourselves and anybody who's brave enough off a bridge with a large rubber band tied to the ankle, and we call it bungee jumping. Our mountains are famous. Our silver fern is on our passport. And I'm sorry to the Australians in the room, we're really good at rugby, and our All Blacks are amazing. Sorry, my French friends too. So New Zealand, small country, around 4.7 million of us. It's an incredibly multicultural company. 31 airlines fly to New Zealand, and 22 more code-share. So that's a whole lot of airlines coming in, direct flights to Auckland, from Houston, from Chicago, San Francisco, Vancouver, Shanghai. New Zealand is nowhere near as far away as it once was. Our library and information sector is diverse and vibrant. We have 314 public libraries, 110 community libraries, 24 tertiary libraries, 255 special libraries. There's over 6,000 New Zealanders working in and with libraries across Aoteaoroa, New Zealand. So that's your little history lesson about New Zealand. And for anybody who's in the room who's very new to Creative Commons, I thought I'd just start with making the difference between Creative Commons and copyright quite clear, so you know what we're talking about. Copyright operates under an all rights reserved mindset. Creative Commons operates under a some rights reserved mindset. So for example, if I took this photo, once I've taken it, I own the copyright to it. With Creative Commons licenses, I decide how you can use this, reuse it, and share it. Copyright makes it quite clear that actually the permissions are held and locked down by the person or organisation who's created it. Creative Commons want to essentially share the love, share the knowledge, and put it out there for others to reuse and build upon. So what I'm going to talk about today is the new Creative Commons certificates for educators and librarians. So 2 courses were launched in July this year after some beta testing amongst 50 of us who signed up and were part of a 12-week program from January. So the principles of Creative Commons operate very much within an open mindset. So open in this context refers to the 5 R's. Can I retain? Can I reuse? Can I revise? Can I remix? Can I redistribute? So those 5 R's are applied to the thing that we're working with. The photo, the research, the music, the data set. Creative Commons licenses encourage the reuse, redistribution, remixing of the asset. And the training course was a deep dive into the history and the mechanics of how Creative Commons licenses and open thinking works within our worlds. So what I thought I'd do, because it's quite time consuming online, is I'll just take you through the 5 modules of the course. So the first one was what is Creative Commons, and it took you through the backstory of Creative Commons, how they got to where they are now, and it was a fantastic sort of potted history. All the content is written in a really accessible way. It's not like an academic text. It's very personable and very accessible. So the story of Creative Commons today were the main components of module 1. And it gave me a great insight into the why and the how of Creative Commons. The second unit was around copyright law. Now, I'll admit I sort of groaned inwardly when I saw what the course was going to be, but actually this was probably one of the most revealing and thought-provoking modules of the course, because I understood, as a participant, I got to understand the journey and the challenges of the people who set up Creative Commons when they were challenging the structures and restrictions of copyright law on on the use of creative resources. So this unit dealt with copyright law, mainly from a US perspective, but we were encouraged to look at copyright law in our own countries. So I'd just like to stress that there was a sort of US focus, but it is not the focus of the course. It delved into copyright basics, global aspects of copyright, the public domain, which was incredibly interesting and gave me huge pools of resources that I could apply to my work as I work with my colleagues. And it took us into the exceptions and limitations to copyright, which to me when I started, I had no idea. So through the readings, the viewings, it sort of scaffolded my learning around these things that were completely new. This might look like a secret code, but by the end of the 10 weeks, you completely understand what this means as you work through the license design and terminology, the license scope, license types, and license enforceability. And they, for me, as we went deeper, so this was each module was around 2 weeks. As you went into this module, you got a chance to have your sort of overwhelmed moment, then work through the readings and the coursework and readings, and at the end it was demonstrating your understanding. So it's a lovely layering process as you work independently on this. Module 4 was around using the licenses and using and CC license works. So it looked at choosing and applying licenses. That was particularly interesting for me in my context as I'm advocating that the organisation I'm employed by opens up its content more. We're a not-for-profit in the education sector in New Zealand, and I believe that we should be walking the talk, demonstrating best practice. So this unit gave me the traction that in the last 2 weeks before I came away, our senior management are now looking at developing an open policy across our whole company and opening up, licensing our resources differently going forward. This module also focused on finding and using Creative Commons licensed work, which was fantastic to just discover things that I hadn't come across, and then in the comments to my colleagues, sending those out as you might be interested in this. I was forwarding so many resources to our marketing teams, and they were using openly licensed images more in our collateral that we sent out. We got an opportunity to look at remixing Creative Commons licensed work. This was tricky, but really, really valuable. And along the way, again, the great resources, readings and viewings. So not everything was reading, it was watching as well. And again, a lot of those were great to share with my colleagues. So at this point in the course, those first 3 modules were consistent for both educators and librarians, the 2 different streams. At this point, they split. So even though I'm a librarian, I decided to do the educator module because I work for a company that's sitting in the education sector. And our content focused on the open world. So the sector that deals with open education resources, open textbooks, open courses. This was a revelation for me, understanding there's a whole community out there wanting to share and make available the resources that make education more accessible for our communities. There's so much data available, so much research that says the barrier to education is often the textbook costs. And this component of the certificate was directly translatable back into my country, where we have parts of our community that cannot afford textbooks. They cannot, looking at higher education as well. So now we have discussions happening around how we as a company can create resources that make education more accessible. Part of this unit looked at evaluating and adapting resources and crafting and sharing open education pedagogy and practices. This gave this component of the course created a real sense of community amongst the participants, and we shared from each other as much as we consumed from the course content. The Creative Commons for Librarians module focused on open access scholarship, open education resources, open textbooks, and open courses. And again, the same as the educator module, finding, evaluating, and adapting resources. So as you're working through the modules, you are being assessed. Each module has an assignment. We do create a resource. It could be a video, it could be a slide presentation, an infographic, but that's not exclusively your options. You can decide on something else. And you make a resource that you and others can reuse as part of sort of teaching and advocacy about Creative Commons while demonstrating your understanding of the module that you've just completed. You're given a detailed rubric of what the assessment will look like and how much each part is worth, and what the marking schedule is. Each module also has a group discussion where there's actually no right or wrong, because a lot of the discussions are about personal feelings. They acknowledge that different countries will have different ideas and different interpretations of the content. So the discussion is about being involved and sharing your viewpoint, and it was fascinating. I was in with people from Indonesia, from Canada, from the Netherlands. Just the diversity of ideas and thinking was just incredible. And like I said, along the way you get a reading list and a viewing list, so there are some compulsory components, but you've also got an extended reading list. The assignments, the modules, a lot of the readings are based on this book. If you've not come across this, Made with Creative Commons is a free PDF download created by Paul Stacey, who was a few years ago the Associate Director of Education for Creative Commons, along with Sarah Hitchcock-Pearson. This is gold. This is an absolute amazing book. It's got 24 different business models advocating or demonstrating how open practice can be used in business and still make money. So the myth that if you create it and give it away, you won't make money. It's not the primary driver for CC licensing your content is to make money, but this book demonstrates that you can have and. I thoroughly recommend it. So if you're all inspired, unfortunately this year's courses are sold out, but in the fall, from your website, which I'm interpreting as about September, applications for the 2019 courses will be opened. So what they've done in true Creative Commons spirit is they've licensed all the content, all the resources, all the readings with the CC attribution only license. So they are, from that link, they are downloadable, editable files. You can go through the whole course readings before you register for the course. Creative Commons are looking to translate the content into different languages and are seeking local content so that it's contextualised for our different regions. And they're also going to be providing in-person workshops, or they're calling them boot camps, for small groups to be trained in person if the remote distance learning option is not appealing. They're also launching a Creative Commons instructors course. So once you've completed this Creative Commons certificate, you can then apply to be an instructor. You shadow one of the trainers, one of the facilitators, and then you're qualified, if you pass, to take the courses in your own country. They've also plans for a GLAM sector program. So they call the different programs tracks. So there's a librarian track, a teacher track, and they're looking at having a GLAM track. And there was talk around having a government track at the beginning. I'm not sure where that's at the moment. For me, apart from the knowledge that I've gained and the understanding, it was the power of the community that I was working with. So in my track, there was 25 of us that started, and we were the testers of this program. So we had to acknowledge that there were going to be some rough spots. There were going to be some places where the links didn't work and the content wasn't clear. But what we worked through and taught each other and shared and learned from each other was absolutely incredible. And when we came together, 5 of us at the summit in Toronto this year, it was like reuniting with your best friends from school. The learnings from the people that I studied with, in all honesty, were probably more than the course readings, because they were the people who were working alongside me, interpreting, sharing, teaching, and I got so much from them. We were across a huge range of different library sectors, different countries, different positions within our organisations, but everybody was the same when we were training together. And we're still in contact now and still refer back to each other for advice and support. So the power of that community, I absolutely rate it as one of the main things from the course. So getting your certificate is highly exciting, and I did a little happy dance around our office. You pass, you need 90% or higher on your graded assignments. Once you're qualified, you can say that you are qualified to create new open licensed resources, that you know how to adapt and innovate on existing open materials to keep your organisation and institution's knowledge base relevant and up to date. You can advise your institution on creating and engaging with openly licensed works and the adoption of open policies. You can help others as you try to increase their knowledge and awareness of open resources. And you get access to the amazing content that your peers create. Now, the bonus for anybody starting the next course is you've had 2 groups go before you. So all of that content is available to look at and draw from, as well as your peers that you're studying alongside with. And one of the great things for me in New Zealand is looking to have a more open, we have a very open and transparent government anyway, but there is a lot of talk around more open and transparency across different departments and organisations, especially if we're applying for grant funding, foundation funding, and applying for contracts. So that's been very powerful in my organisation as we've been able to weave that into our bidding process. So I tried to think about some of the other things that I might not have covered, and time might be one of the things that you're questioning. I would allow between 8 and 10 hours a week. I don't know what they're saying for this course, but we found that the time that they estimated was probably a little bit light, but we appreciate that we were doing the beta testing and it was a guess at the beginning. You need a strong internet connection. And communications are through the Slack channel. So it's a nice threaded conversations around different topics and the ability to check back. The tutors are all very active in the Slack channel. So again, it's like another place to find answers, to check understanding, but also to say you just actually don't understand. There's email contact with your tutor. Now, Creative Commons acknowledge that the certificate may not be available to people who want to do it, and they're aiming to change that. So from one of the pieces I read, it said that in 2019, they're seeking to have a scholarship program, but I don't have any details about that. You'd have to be checking it with Creative Commons. So yesterday at Aoteaoroa's presentation, she had this slide on the screen and she's given me permission to use this, and I'm embarrassed to say I haven't put attribution on the slide, and I will correct that afterwards. The small print says that for the past, knowledge was a privilege and it was in book format. The central slide says yesterday information was for everyone, and that format was the internet. And under the today bubble, it says, knowledge is for everyone. It's the social web. My feeling about the Creative Commons certificate is it gives us as information and library professionals a platform to advocate from as we understand much deeper about the power of openly licensed resources to providing equitable access to information, learning and knowledge for all people. If we're to have a forward vision of libraries, we need to challenge ourselves as a profession and rethink our role as librarians beyond providing access to information, but also access to the tools that provide, share and open up for our communities knowledge, and that makes that knowledge openly accessible for all to use, repurpose and redistribute. There's a pile of links and hashtags and emails on that slide if you're wanting more information to contact Creative Commons. Jenrin, fourth button down, she's the person who coordinates the certificate. That's her email, and she's given me permission to share this. There's a Creative Commons newsletter, which beyond just information about the certificate is a fantastic insight regularly around the Creative Commons global network, what's happening in different countries. There's a Creative Commons open education platform you can join, and there's actually a webinar happening, I think it's the 12th of September. You can follow them on Twitter as well. And I'll be here for till the end of the Congress, so my WhatsApp number's there. If anybody wants to talk and just go through the program and understand a bit more, I'm more than happy to help with that. So if I'll stop talking, and is there anything I've not covered that anybody in the room would like to ask?
Just to add, I think we've got a couple of minutes, so if you go to the mic next to you, then just behind you there's a microphone. Thank you.
A very simple, practical question. How much does the course cost?
I did the beta testing and it was cheaper. There are no prices on the site, so I'd suggest contact Jenrin and she will tell you what it will be. I'm not keeping a secret. I honestly have no idea. Yeah, it was not hundreds. It was not in the thousands. That's for sure. When we did it, it was in New Zealand dollars, which is quite a weak dollar. It was accessible.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to need to clear the hall relatively soon. With Paula's permission, I can upload the PowerPoint to the IFLA website. I will create an event under our advisory committee on copyright and other legal matters, and you will find the event with the link to the PowerPoint there. I'll try and do that in the next couple of hours so you can find more information. We're going to have to clear the room, so thank you, Paula. That was excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
And don't forget to take some CC merchandise
Right here.
at the front.
No idea how to edit a video. So